Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot, and welcome to our January refresh reading. So, as many of you know, at the beginning of each month, I like to do a reading that kind of gives you an idea of what you need to know as you are moving through the month, what kind of energy is coming your way. And then around the middle of the month, I like to refresh that. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go ahead and do the refresh on that energy and just kind of see what direction it seems like it's headed now. So it'll be a general reading, as always, for this collective. If you find that this is your story, you may want to look at some of the other readings and get whatever other messages may be out there for you. Otherwise, you may also want to think about subscribing so that they're easier for you to grab. So we'll go ahead and get started. Looking at the energy of the second half of the month, second half of January, we have the Son of Staffs. So staffs are fire energy. They're like wands. The Son of Staffs is like the Knight of Wands in the reverse. So we've got in and out energy happening here. This is energy that triggers you, energy that makes you really kind of look into yourself and determine how you're going to manage it. It's like it's taunting you. Energy that feels like it's taunting you. And boy, I got to tell you, it feels like that's already started. Four of Swords here in the reverse. It's showing you where the healing hasn't yet happened, but it's not being super gentle about it. There's definitely a sense of kind of a rude awakening, discovering that you were not as healed or not as together in some regard as you thought you were. I get that sense of like adding insult to injury because you discover that you are not as together as you thought. All right. Let's see here. I want to make sure that I didn't miss any. I think I grabbed it. There was just like a pile of cards that fell. And I wanted to make sure I didn't miss any individual cards that might also have fallen. So with this, what do we got? The Son of Swords in the reverse here. Son of Swords in the reverse is a card of fear, wanting to run away. I think what you're experiencing in this is there is a strong tie between yours and your person's energy here. So each of you are kind of getting triggered in your own life situations, and it's not necessarily being very comfortable for you, either of you. Like things are happening in your individual lives, and that's not uncommon, but it's something that kind of is impacting the energy that typically flows between you. So it's a little bit, maybe a little bit more frustrating in that regard than what we would often see. And the thing is, I kind of felt like this month was, I remember when we originally did the reading, there was a need for you to be very passive, like not necessarily passive, but to be very accepting of your path and very much flowing with things. There was that feeling that the best results would come from a situation where there was not a lot of attachment to the outcome. I remember that from the January, the overall month reading, and I feel like it really comes out here, and this is where you're being tested kind of in that regard. There's a need for you to maintain balance during that. So more than usual, it feels like you always kind of want to maintain balance no matter what life is throwing at you, but there's something more important here. You want to keep it tight, and there's a tendency for it to want to loosen up on you because we've got that Ten of Swords in the reverse. You are resolving something that has to do with your own ancient pain. Something becomes more visible. You are making something more visible. There may be an increase in vulnerability on your side. I get this strongly with you. I don't know that I get it strongly with your person, but I think there may be something that's happening there that would make it extra tough to maintain that daily balance. And it's a change that is going to impact you in every element of your life, but it shows how much you've invested in yourself, and it allows you to know where to place additional investment in yourself with that Seven of Pentacles. Interesting. Okay, so there's a kind of a fast moving energy that wants to come out here. It's fast moving, and it's I would say no nonsense, but not negative. It's got a very brusque sort of feel to it, but it's not negative. There is something going on here with the third party energy here. And we just saw this yesterday too. We saw this in yesterday's, like the current energy in yesterday. And we were asking what needs to happen for the two of you to come together. And I think we had actually the three of cards in the reverse come out talking about how there is some kind of shift in that third party energy. Felt like it was maybe more on their side. Still feels like it might be maybe more on their side, but I would not be surprised at all if you've got a shift in your own third party energy. Listen, you could both be married and you and your spouse have a really great day and get a lot closer. That could be the shift that happens. I mean, it could take any sort of form, and I'm absolutely know that not everybody's in that place. That's just one example that's going to be causes you to reevaluate something that's happening in your current life. And it could be that it chooses you, you could be forced to reevaluate something, but it doesn't come up very favorably. So you have an experience that makes you realize you need to look more closely at your job and decide if it's the right thing for you to do. And maybe that's the third party energy that you're dealing with. There is a change. And I don't know that it entirely takes place in this energy, but it's a change that it gets instigated during this time across the second half of the month. So we've got the Ten of Swords in the reverse, which talks about coming back, or not so much coming back, healing from ancient pains. And this is where, in the face of a very raw feeling of being constantly exposed at some point to what your pains actually are and what the limitations of your healing actually are, but I feel like you face up to it and do an incredible job. Especially with this Devil card in the reverse. The Devil card in the reverse has everything to do with like an addiction being conquered, or a feeling of something that is controlling one or both of you going away. So it's getting to a next level in dealing with an addiction, because a lot of times that is a continuum, and not something that just happens super quickly. So I saw that Four of Swords there, and I know that there is a lot of healing that's happening, but I don't feel like that's supposed to be the next thing in this reading. We got the Ace of Pentacles, which is about the opening of a door, but it's also about the jumping into a new opportunity. I remember something about, and it's not jumping quickly either, but I remember something about opportunity that is coming your way that wants to set your soul on fire. So typically it comes out with that kind of Ace of Wands sort of energy. But this one is interesting because it causes you to, it may really come at you fast, but then it hits rush hour traffic. I mean, there's something about it that we saw, like I don't even know if the Two of Swords came out. I just remember the feeling of having to make decisions. And this showed up in a lot of the end of year, beginning of year readings that we were doing as we closed out 2023 and began 24. There was that feeling of you're going to have to make decisions. You aren't going to be able to fit in all of the cool stuff. And so you're going to have to make some decisions about which cool stuff you're actually going to engage in and which cool stuff you're going to have to let go by the wayside. You've got a Four of Cups here, which talks about disappointment, and it feels like exactly with the decisions that you're going to have to make. These are, looking at it and being disappointed about something. So there's something that you're not going to be able to do that you really wish you were going to be able to take part in, I think. And that becomes a little bit frustrating for you. But there's also this sense of a Six of Cups, and this is drawing you back into, it's a very nostalgic feeling, but it's drawing you back into some old place, like some old place that you maybe aren't done dealing with, or this is possibly finding some additional places for healing. But I feel like it almost feels like the energy of a setback, and yet it's a Six of Cups. Like it's a setback, but you feel you're enjoying it pretty much while you're having it. Very enjoyable setback. Interesting. Hopefully not too detrimental. It doesn't feel real detrimental. It feels pretty lighthearted, but it's like going out and having a good time instead of getting some work done. So it's detrimental in that you still have to come back and get the work done, but it's not the end of the world because none of it was due. Nine of Wands. Okay, so you've got the Nine of Wands coming out here in the upright. There is something about your situation where you are hiding behind, well, not necessarily you, it could be your person, but the energy is there. And actually it does feel like it's more your person, but watch for it on both sides, where you're hiding behind a wall of resistance, where you don't want to move towards something because there's some history, something has happened in the past that you're not especially fond of. There's something here that probably shouldn't be as powerful of a wall as it is. And yet it's just real hard to get past. Like, it feels hard to get past. That's part of what's in the energy with you right now. Not being able to figure out where exactly that guarding should occur. And this is a sense of guardedness where it doesn't make much sense for that. Okay, let's look a little bit more into what else we expect in the second half of January. We know that there was an opportunity for a lot of change. We had opportunity that was coming in that felt like the thing that was going to set your soul on fire. We had the opportunity for great change that multiple opportunities heading your way. Something about definitely needing to choose between some things. Something about an opportunity for happiness that you were like reluctant to make the trade-offs to move into, but it was like some kind of sacrifice that you didn't feel comfortable toward making, because you're going to want to walk the high road. There's a feeling of an opportunity to make balance, and you could choose to make a decision that throws things farther off balance. You'll have the opportunity. One of the opportunities that comes through really allows you to throw things off balance. And so remember also, there was one that was an opportunity you weren't necessarily supposed to take. And we also know that now that we're in the middle of this month, we could be talking about things that are happening now or that have happened in the last couple of days. So you could be looking at, depending on where you are in the timeline, opportunities that are very much heading your way or that you are already taking part in. You may also notice that there is at least one opportunity that you're not taking. You're not jumping into it for some reason, and the reason may just be a gut response, but it's the right thing to do. There is a walking the high road element of this as well, which is to say, walking the high road is very important to you in this energy, but you don't always know what that is going to mean. With the Shah of Swords, this is a King of Swords. This is not knowing what it means because you don't have all the information to put together. So sometimes you're standing there where you can kind of take a step back and look at the big picture and trying to figure out, all right, based on everything that I see here, what's the best path forward? And then other times you don't have the opportunity to take a step back and look at the big picture because you either don't have the perspective, can't get the perspective, and don't know how to, or the information is not available to you. So there's something here that's limiting to you. In the month of January, or in this time frame, I can't say this isn't going to already have kind of started for you or doesn't go into the beginning of February, but primarily, I mean, the gist of it is here's what we're looking at for the second half of January. But there's that feeling of not being able to look at the big picture. What dropped? Another card that had the decency to fall face down, because I think I already have, yes. Five of Coins. Okay. Whoops. With the Five of Coins, this is about, we keep seeing evidence of this. We keep seeing that you're going to understand the outlines of your healing. You're going to understand the limitations of your healing. This is healing particularly in the area of those big three issues that we often talk about. And it is absolutely an area of, like, in the Venn diagram of your issues that you guys are both working to solve in the lessons that you're learning, right in the middle is going to be this card. Right in the middle is the feeling that comes from this, which is, and this is a card of letting yourself in from out in the cold. But in this case, it's around that fear. It's like I said, the big three. So it's that fear of rejection, of abandonment, of betrayal, and it's a card of letting yourself in from out in the cold, and it really is that, because these are things that only the individual is able to really get past, and there's not anything that another person can do to make it happen for them. That's very strong in this. But when I say figuring out like the limitations of your healing, it's figuring out where the healing in those in the area of those issues in particular has already taken place. So we have an Ace of Swords, or I'm sorry, a Six of Swords that's coming out here in the reverse. Feels a little like an Ace of Swords, honestly, in the reverse. So the Six of Swords in the reverse is about, oh gosh, things never calm down so that I can actually get a feel for what's going on. That is maybe part of why there is that sense of not being able to back up and look at the big picture, but there's also some element of that Ace of Swords in the reverse too. And that's one that we've seen a fair amount of here lately. But with that feeling, it's about not being true to yourself, not necessarily giving yourself all of, availing yourself of all of the information that's out there. So maybe seeing it, but maybe kind of conveniently stashing it off to the side while making the decision, so it doesn't end up factoring in very much. So it's not so much a truth that didn't come to you, but one that you are not using, or that they are not using. There's something in here about that with the Six of Swords, kind of hiding behind the fact that things never slow down. With the Page of Wands, okay, so we have Page of Wands and Knight of Swords. Page of Wands in the upright is a very curious page, often kind of making this is the sort of reaching out sort of communication. But it's interesting because the Knight of Swords says this reaching out could take multiple forms. And so this could be someone who is watching or spying or trying to gather some of this information that feels like it's missing, or is too afraid to reach out in any real way. So because they are discovering that even though maybe they've written the note that they wanted to send you, they're still too afraid of rejection. So they're still too afraid of sending it. So they're observing you instead of communicating with you. You're going to get some of that in this energy here. So we've got that, I don't know if I want to call it spying energy. I'm going to call it spying energy though, because it does feel very surreptitious. And I don't think I use that term very often, the spying sort of energy, but it has that feel to it. It has that them watching without you knowing and them not wanting you to know. There is a very warm, positive, basking in one another's energy sort of feeling that happens here. And it's cool because it's happening in that 5D sort of energetic level, even if on the 3D physical level there's really not very much going on. Really great feeling of, again, just basking in that happiness. And with the Eight of Pentacles, this is like an energetic balance, but it's like an emotional balance. Not just an emotional balance, but the ability to remain balanced even when something happens. So you'll notice kind of that calm, cool, collected energy that starts to come out and it's associated very much with this basking in each other's energy. That's interesting because it comes out kind of in the background, even around this little bit of anxiety sort of energy coming out with all these swords, with the Shah of Swords, which is like the King of Swords in reverse, with the fear that manifests in them maybe not being able to hit send on the communication, but instead sitting and observing you. Okay. Let's see what wants to come out next. Yeah, there's a desire to control. They want to control, but they feel powerless. So they want to control things coming in, but they feel powerless to do so. Don't really feel like they're standing on steady ground, which is more of an honorable mention. But with this Emperor, it's just such a strong feeling of not being in control, but really wanting to be. And this is why we have them shying away from actually hitting send and instead just kind of incorporating that spying into their, it's like it comes into their process, or into their daily plan, their daily, like their morning process involves checking into you, or there's something like that. It like gets in every day, or it gets in as part of some daily cycle, daily process. I'm not sure why I'm getting that. It does feel very spyish. Like, I'm probably going to mention it in the title because I'm a little bit surprised at how much it's coming through. I'm curious to know why the spying energy is so heavy. And maybe that's what we get into when we get into the extended, because it seems a little extreme. And that's not something that we often get from this divine masculine, because yes, a lot of them are the divine masculine. Here we have the King of Swords, which kind of belies the fact that they really could do a better job of looking at the big picture than they are doing. But I don't know that with the rest of this noise happening in the energy that they would be able to make much sense of this, even if they did. They don't feel ready. This is part of the reason that they would neglect to hit send. And it's probably, you might be dodging a bit of a bullet if they decide not to hit send and instead just sit there and spy. You know, I would say it's up to you as to what kind of show you want to give them and how you want to give it to them. But there's a definite tendency that they feel like they're not prepared for this. There's something they're not prepared for. One of the things that they don't feel like they can afford you. It's like having a job that you apply for and they really want to hire you, but they don't feel like they can afford your salary. So they reject your application. This feels a little bit like that. Like they don't feel like they can afford you. They don't feel like they're necessarily going to be able to make the sort of, like they're going to be able to give you what you need and what you really want in a situation. And so that's kind of the equal give and take. They don't feel like they're prepared to do that. I'm not convinced that they aren't prepared to do that. I get the sense that they feel like they know they didn't do it before, and that seems true. That seems like a legitimate shame. It doesn't feel like just a perception, but there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear, and it's like you can flip or fly with this Page of Swords, and I'm not sure which one they're going to do at any given time. You may see a little bit of both, and that kind of fits into that Son of Staffs kind of feeling. You'll see an inconsistent back and forth energy with that, which is a cycle that we often kind of feel coming from this particular divine masculine anyway. But the sense of feeling powerless, the sense of wanting that power and kind of scrabbling toward that power but not being able to get it, that's kind of what puts them in a place of like denying that they can build a strategy going forward. But we see down here that they actually can. Instead, though, like they're hiding. There's a lot of hiding energy and a lot of hiding and spying, hiding and spying. So we're going to look into the hiding and spying a little bit when we get into the extended, because it seems like it really increased here in the second half of this month, like increased by a lot. It didn't get mentioned. Maybe it got mentioned back in the January one. Honestly, I can't promise that it didn't, but I can promise you I didn't feel this much of it. Let's look into you and your recommendations for you. What should you be focusing on here in the second half of January? What would be a good place for you to focus? You're on your person's mind. But you got a lot going on. So we got the Five of Cups wanted to come out separately from the Ten of Swords. We got a Five of Cups in the reverse. That's the way I like to see it for you, because it's very balanced. Ooh, but there's self-destructive behavior. Okay, so but it's not self-destructive behavior that you've necessarily already engaged in. It's just kind of a watch out. And I get the sense that if you have already engaged in the self-destructive behavior, it's not something that you can't come back around. So like basically you can come back around, make an adjustment, and you'll have a chance, like a redo, an opportunity for a redo. This is not something permanent. But if you haven't done this yet, this is a misstep. If you haven't had this misstep yet, knowing that it's coming could maybe help you avoid it. Just be careful. Make sure you kind of double check yourself. Make sure you're not hitting reply to all on an email where you meant to hit reply to a couple of people, that sort of thing. And the thing is, with the reply to all, maybe you can't exactly take it back, but it is something where you can still, you'll be able to figure out a way to fix it. With the Ten of Swords in the reverse, you are making progress. Okay, this is in the basic energy of January, in the second half of January. And honestly, if I'm honest, it's the full month of January. But the Ten of Swords in the reverse, we've seen a ton of the Ten of Swords coming up. It's about that ancient pain. It's about working through ancient pain, but it loosens you up a little bit like we were seeing over there. Sometimes loosening you up just makes it a little bit more difficult, easier to flail and more difficult to be controlled. But in this case, you've got a really beautiful skill set around looking at a situation. And so this Five of Cups allows you to have a really nice balanced perspective about what's going on in front of you, allowing you to see the good with the bad. That's kind of what that Five of Cups often gives you. The Four of Swords, it's a, yes, it's a time of recuperation. It says recuperation. It's a time of recuperation, of healing, of resting, rejuvenation. We've got the Six of Wands. There is something that is very much, you need this rest and rejuvenation because you were in the middle of something. That's what the Six of Wands tells us. Still in the middle of something, still getting bad advice. There's some place where you are getting bad advice. Or you remember we talked about this, and maybe it just hasn't happened yet and I'm just still seeing it. But there was, we talked about a situation where you were going to get some advice that either was bad or that you were going to take it in a way that wasn't helpful. Like it doesn't matter whether you're misinterpreting the advice or whether it is bad. The point is, if you feel like there's advice you shouldn't be taking, whether it comes from me or whomever, make sure that you are absolutely questioning this and maybe not taking it because you might not be hearing it right or they might not be giving it right. So just something to think about. And there will be plenty for you to sift through with this moon energy. That's a lot of energy coming your direction in the form of messages. You may be hearing from this person, and if so, it would be in a pretty unhealed kind of way, it feels like. So again, with trying to be graceful as you come through it, but you are very much still working through something despite the fact that you're having a little time for recuperation and rejuvenation. You've got the Fortune card here. This is all about change. It's all about not knowing exactly. It's not just change, it's also chance. It's like the spinning of a wheel, but not knowing where it's going to stop. This is about opportunity that is not yet written. And honestly, a lot of it isn't written. And that is where, like we saw with the January reading overall, where you were going to have your best success is to not worry about it. So not having an attachment to outcomes, not caring too much about the direction something goes, being willing to go with wherever that wheel stops, that's the kind of attitude that you'll want to bring into it. So it doesn't so much matter when something's going to happen. You're more open just in general, energetically, and that is going to open up a lot of things for you. That's kind of what this Fortune card tells me. Your opportunities abound, and you are heading into, I think we saw this yesterday. I think you're heading into a place of abundance and in a cycle of increase, which is kind of really nice when you've got a wheel to spin and it's kind of all the options seem pretty cool. We've got the Nine of Pentacles here, which is feeling like you wake up and you finally feel like you have some stability, like emotional independence type of stability. You have coming to, this is the universe card. You have you're coming to the end of something, to the end of a cycle. We keep seeing this, but the beauty of it is, like, as you come to the end of this cycle, it's actually doing you some good to be able to wrap things up, to look back, and maybe even if you've been journaling it, go back and read some of what you've been journaling. So that you can get into some of those messages and get some perspectives from where you've been. You've got this Five of Pentacles coming in again. So this is that same sort of feeling that's coming in over here. And remember, it's in the Venn diagram of your healing. This Five of Pentacles is a place of crossover. So you too are going to be getting tested on where that healing has taken place and where it hasn't. But I feel like it's relatively... You come through it gracefully. You feel good during the process, maybe even better than you had anticipated. We know that you make a big emotional shift, okay? And I feel like you're already doing it, but it's like you make an emotional shift that is a little bit bigger than what you may have expected to have to make. Like you're taking a bit of a leap of faith, but it's an enjoyable leap of faith. Like there's something very enjoyable about the lessons that you're learning here, very enjoyable about the quest that you're going on. It's not a bad place to be, and to kind of, stop and smell the roses. There's something enjoyable about it here. We are going to take a look into this spying energy, though. I think we're going to go into the extended now, and so the link will be down below if you'd like to join me there. We're going to take a look into this spying energy and just understand why the hiding and the spying all of a sudden so strongly. Like, what has happened here? So, and that's really the second half of January. So it's like they stubbed their toe kind of pain. But it causes them to have an outsized response, which I don't know if I can get in and describe that one any better. I'll give it a shot. I definitely want to understand what's happening with this hiding and running away. It's like hiding, running away, and very much the turning around and spying and doing it from a distance, kind of, even when they've maybe been able to have communications that were a little bit more forthright recently. So let's look into that. I hopefully will see you over in the extended. If not, I will see you in tomorrow's reading.